basic throwing demo that we hope we're going to be able to use online. So how much water is in your clay, how soft it is, makes a big difference to the ability to center it. So please keep that in mind. If you're really struggling, you might be trying to throw clay that's really too hard. So I have my bucket here. I'm going to show you the tools that I use. I'm going to try to go fast so it's not a super long video. You need a sponge that fits in your hand. Okay, you don't want it too big for that. These are plain commercial sponges. You need a tool like this that's kind of wedge shaped. You need any 90-degree rib. This is very important. Wooden, they're usually wooden. You need a needle tool. And a very nice option to have is this metal kidney rib, very thin, and it's yeah, you'll see what the uses are for it. All right, so I've wet my clay. I actually made sure that it was good clay before I started the video. I've wet my clay. I'm going to wet my hands like I'm washing them. I put the heel of my left hand right at 7 o'clock. If this is midnight and this is 6 o'clock, this is 3 and this is 9 as you sit at the wheel. Okay, and all of your work is going to be, as you change your pot, is going to be between 3 and 6 o'clock. And it'll be a natural move. You don't necessarily have to remember that, but it's good to understand it for a minute. So I'm going to apply pressure here at 7 o'clock with the heel of my left hand, and I'm going to come down with the blade of my right hand, both of them damp. I'm just going to rest this little knuckle right over the center. And as I feel the clay start to get dry, I relax and release, which is very key, to relax before you let go of the clay, no matter what you're doing. And I go right back into the same position and I'm pushing down again. And what's happening is I'm trapping the clay between my hand and it has to run through there and it will change its own shape. So as I'm pushing down, I'm pushing in. When it's dry, I relax, release. Get just a thin layer of water on it is enough. You just want it to feel greasy all the time. Matters a lot. Pushing it down a little bit more. Yeah. So wheel wedging is the act of bringing it up and pushing it down several times. It softens your clay. It actually aligns your clay, and it aligns you, and that matters a lot too. So now I'm going to pull it back up, and I'm going to overlap my fingertips like this. Put them here, and I'm going to push with the heel of my left hand again toward the palm of my right. So this is the move that I'm making. I don't know if you can see that or not. Is that showing? Excellent. When it dries out a little bit, relax and release. Maybe you can see there's a little volcano in there. Yeah. So what we're going to want to do is get rid of that. So again, the heel of my left hand and the blade of my right hand, I rest it on it and push it down just enough to get rid of the volcano as I'm pushing in. Yep, just like that. Come back around here and do it again. Pushing in with the heel of the left hand toward the palm of the right hand. And if you get a volcano, then you just want to get rid of that part of it. This is almost like lathe work here. This is an incredible malleable material. And now I'm going to come up a little bit taller. I'm going to go a little bit faster. There we go. And we're going to bring it down a little bit more. All right, I'm going to slow down. I'm going to take my 90-degree rib and wet it. And I'm going to start it out here so I know it's sitting flat. I'm going to bring it in until it touches the pot, and I'm just going to hold it there for a minute and get rid of soft clay. So when I put my hands back on here, I can really feel the, whether it's centered or not. So now I'm going to go one more time. Push up a little bit. Okay, it's feeling pretty good. As it gets closer to center, it's easier to push it off. You put a lot of energy into it to start with, and then as it gets closer to center, it's less energy. And that can be a shift that we just have to stop and think about. So I'm going to take it down now a little bit and get ready to open this pot. All right, so that's reasonably well centered. Lots and lots of ways to open a pot. Make sure it's centered, yep. Here's one that we teach in this studio. If you put your left hand in front of you and anchor it on your thigh, and stick out the index finger of your right hand and drop it toward the outer edge. Well, I'm kind of in the middle here, so, but not the middle of the clay. What happens is I become a protractor, okay? And I can lean in. This is what they do with jigs too. I could just lean in with that hand, and can you see that it draws a smaller and smaller circle till I get right here, and I can see that circle is, that's where my center is going to be. And now if I push down, it just found its own center point. Yeah. So now I pick up my elbow and I push down a little bit. And then I pick up, I want the water that's in there to go back under the tip of my finger. So a couple times I'll lift up, and depending on how soft your clay is, you don't want to do this too rapidly because you can set up a twist in the inside of it. And if you open and it's off, you almost might as well start again because you can't really repair that. Okay, so now that it's open, I have a pot. I have an inside and outside. I have a lip and a foot and a belly and a shoulder, all the components of a pot. So for the whole pot, now that it's not just a lump of clay, my right hand is my outside hand. I'll move around for that other camera. My left hand is my inside hand. I'm going to put the thumb of my left hand over the back of my right, and now I've become like a pair of pliers or something like that. Okay, whatever metaphor works for you. So I'm here, I put my finger in, I put my thumb there. Now I'm going to draw the tip of the finger on the left hand toward the palm of the right, straight as I can. Not necessarily fast, depends on your clay. When it gets dry and when you feel any drag at all, stop and get a little more water. Just the water that you carry from your hand is enough. You don't need to load it up with a sponge. Okay? You just want it to feel greasy. As soon as I can get more than one finger in there, I go back with a couple of fingers that's just a little bit stronger. And I just draw the bottom over. You can look down into that if you want. Okay? And you want your bottom to be pretty flat. You don't want it to be a V shape in there, and you don't want a big hump in the middle. If you have a big hump in the middle, you just put your finger on top of it and push down a little bit, and it will start to collapse. And you can actually pack it right into the side by going from the center lightly to the edge a couple of times, and that'll even your bottom out and compress it a little bit. All right, so now I am going to need my sponge. So you can see I've got some schmutz here, slip smudge, so I'm going to just lift that off with the sponge and any other lumps. Okay, but I also want to make sure as I add water that I don't let water sit in here. That really matters a lot. You don't want a puddle in the bottom when you throw, especially earlier in our career when we might spend 15 minutes throwing one piece. If there's more water in the middle, it will absorb it. And then it has to get rid of it, and that's when it becomes a problem. All right, so now we're going to start to make passes up and make the pot taller. This is about the overall width of the base, okay? So your hands are your best tools for this. If I curl up this finger, I can use this whole surface right here to push hard, firmly against the clay, because there's a lot of clay here right now. So, with my left hand, with the thumb of my left hand anchoring, I'm going to come right across from these fingertips right here like this. I don't want to push in front of them, and I don't want to push behind them. This will make a little bit more sense when you sit down to do it. But I want to be right across from each other as I do any move on the pot. So it's supported. It's just clay. There's no bone in it. All right, so I'm going to start right at the bottom. I'm going to notch out a little bit of clay. hug my hands together, and unless it gets dry, I'm just going to pick my shoulders up. I'm just straightening my back. Okay, because I've got everything in the position that I want. When you push real hard on the clay like that, you move a lot of clay, but you also strip off a lot of slip. So put a little more back on there. I'm coming right back in with the bigger part of the tool here. And you can see that my hands are right across from each other. That's going to eliminate a lot of problems for you. Okay, I'm going to make one or two more passes, adding water because I stripped it, removing water so it won't crack the bottom of my pot. I'm going to come right back to this. I'm going to slow down. Centrifugal force now. Walls are thinner, and it will turn it into a ball. The whole time that you're throwing this stage, you're throwing a cylinder. Okay, don't go out into a ball. Just stay right into a cylinder. It's the strongest that the clay will be, and we're not going to make it thin because we want to be able to go out into a ball. But right now, I want a cylinder that's pretty even from the top to the bottom. So I don't need this big tool anymore. I'm not using so much clay. So now I'm going to use fingertips. I'm going to go like this. Sometimes I'm going to go like this. You'll find what works best for you. That's identifying the clay. You can see right at the bottom there that identifies the clay. And now, ever so slowly, not pushing too hard. I want to come right, I'm actually coming towards my left shoulder, right straight up towards the ceiling. If you find that your pots are opening out like this, you're probably throwing like this. I did this for a long time. If your pots are coming in, then you're to a cone shape, then you're overpowering it with your dominant hand, your right hand. Left and right people, this is exactly the same for both sets of people. This is throwing on the wheel is easier for left-handed people in a lot of ways. So whether you're left or right-handed, you're going to be on this side of the clay. You can see it made these pretty finger rings, okay? And they can be really nice for the glaze to play against. But sometimes, every throw, I'm going to compress the side. So I've taken my 90-degree rib again, I've wet it, and I'm putting it right up against, well, first I guess I should come and clean that so I can get to the foot. I'm going to hold it right against the side on an angle like this. Okay? I'm going to go inside and wipe up with this hand. I'm going to stop right there. Okay, so that is it. It only takes off a little slip. That's a compression pass. And that gets everything standing right back up for you. And you can go back and put those finger rings in. So if you're liking those, don't worry about that. They go right back in there. All right, so I probably on a mug or mug body or something, this is oversized, this is a larger bowl, I probably would compress at least twice. So every couple throws, stop and compress, especially earlier in your career. It'll help it even out. So I'm going to make one more pass now, and I'm going to feel where am I thick, where am I thin, pulling right straight towards my left shoulder, and then I stop just before I get to the lip. Don't cross the lip, okay? If you forget, no big deal, but try not to. This is how we compress the lip. So anytime you cross the lip, or the lip gets thin, or you hit the lip, or change it in any way, you want to do a compression pass. So with a wet hand, you're going to support right at 6 o'clock with your thumb and finger, and you're going to come down with your index finger and just rest it on the pot. You don't necessarily have to push, especially if it's really thin, and especially if you've just banged it. Just hold it. It's going to go around 100 times as I sit here, and it's going to take a lot of the problem out. You want to compress the lip so that the lip will be strong in use. If they're thin, they break more easily, and mugs and that kind of stuff get used a lot. All right, so we could stop right there. We have a fine pot. There's nothing wrong with that. From here, you can add things. You can cut into it. You could 1,000 different things here. I'm not sure what I do. This is definitely would hold pencils. And that would work for me as an artist. Now we're going to push it out, okay? And we're just going to make a couple moves. We're going to go out into a bowl. I don't have an idea of what shape bowl. You may or may not. And that's a practice thing. Lots of videos on YouTube, so check them out. I don't want my pot to get any thinner now. It's already going to get thinner because if I go from this width to this width, it's the same amount of clay, right? So that's already going to get thinner. So I don't want to be pushing my hands towards each other. This is one of those shift moments again. I'm going to go in with what we call the butterfly, right? I'm going to hug the clay on both sides, but I'm not going to push towards my fingers anymore. I'm going to keep them equidistant, and I'm going to lean my body and push out that way. And this is what this looks like. I go in and push out. I'm just holding, I'm not coming up. All right, now I can feel that it relaxed and it's all stretched. And now I'm just coming straight up and I'm not pushing my fingertips towards each other, but I'm staying on this line that I've created. Your bowl starts right at the bottom. You can see how distorted my lip is right now. I'm going to let that be. And as I just sit there and hold that, you can see it kind of loses most of the distortion. Making sure that it's slippery enough, I'm going to go back in and do it again. I'm going to go to the widest point and push out there. There's my push out. There's my follow through, nice and slow. Your wheel can go as slow as you want. The slower your wheel goes, the slower this pass goes. Right? So if you're slowed down to here, then your pass would be quite a bit slower. That's kind of a cool form. I think we'll do one more pass and call it good. I think I'm going to come to above here. And I'm just going to hold there. I can feel a little fault in the clay, maybe a little air pocket or a little bit of something organic. All right, now I'm going to lean out. Can you see that my left hand is leaning out? My right hand isn't really moving. And I sort of did a pass up and around it a little bit. Now I'm going to come down here, hugging it ever so lightly. All right, and I'm going to stop my wheel and take a look at what I might be able to do. And for the most part, okay, now I'm going to use this whole tool right here, the whole length of it, and I'm going to lean out. And I'm going to start right here and support it. And I'm just holding. I can actually run my hand up and down here, convince it that it wants to do that. Oh yeah, it says I'll do that. You have to kind of talk the pot into it. And I have to learn how to talk the pot into it. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. I'm going to leave that right there. All right, we're going to say we love that pot. I'm going to stop and pack my lip, just holding it. It's a little bit square. I don't want it to dry too square. A lot of personality in the pot. This is a good place to play. And by holding the sponge in different ways on it, we also have some good hacks. Every studio's got their hacks. We got hacks to share with you. I'm going to go back and give it a little bit more belly underneath. And a little bit more tip out here. And look how much it changes to do just a couple of little things like that. Okay, so this is my trimming opportunity, my post trimming. So starting with my 90-degree rim, I'm coming in to the bottom right there, taking off just a little bit. And I'm going to take my wooden tool. I don't really know what this is called. And I'm going to decide how much of this, if any, I want to cut away. So with a wet tool, I'm looking down this length right here to see where I want my foot to go. I'm going to touch it right there and hold it. And now I'm pushing with my left hand. I'm kind of pushing up or pushing forward like a lever. just gently going down into the clay until I can feel the wheel head. And then I come out, stop my wheel, and it does a nice cut for me. I should have laid water down underneath that cut. Let's see if I can still do that to help it come off better. Should be a little bit, there we go. Should be a little bit slicker move than that. All right, and now I can go in with wet fingertips and get rid of any lines I don't want or accent any lines I do. I'm liking this line, so I'm gonna keep it for no reason at all, except it just appealed to me. And that would be a fun series to do right there, to have that be a personality line with it. I'm going to take just a little bit more out the bottom and try to leave a little bevel there for the glaze. If you can do this, if you can get your pots thin enough at the base and you can do this, then you kind of eliminate the trimming, and isn't that a good idea? All right, that's a basic throw. I would put water on the vat. I don't have a wire with me right now. You take the wire and hold it in both hands, put your thumbs tight on top and pull it down through the water one time this way, and then stop and leave your pot alone. Don't touch it, let the air dry it. Don't leave any water sitting in it. There you are, you're done.